welcome to this week's edition of What's Happening with Leila in Minion Masters. It is week April 27th, and the big thing today is version 1.12 has launched, which is all about Wildcards reworks. And not just that, but there's been balance changes to 17 cards that we are going to look over today. So here on the blog, what you will see is version 112 is going to be about the Wildcards rework, but this isn't necessarily just set and done. This is something that they're testing out for this season, and they even mentioned here that they're going to regularly be doing surveys throughout this patch, featuring it in game news and probably also in your emails during this season. So when you do see that, definitely make sure that you put your input in. That way we can see what happens next season, if we continue on in this direction or if there are some changes. And if you're still not sure what this new direction is, the basics are wildcards are now added as the 11th and 12th cards in your deck, but you must have 10 unique cards in your deck to start a match. So does that mean you have to play a wildcards deck? It doesn't. If you don't want wild cards, your deck is just 10 cards, that's it. If you want to play wild cards, your deck is either going to have 11 or 12 cards in it. So you have to kind of make that determination is if you want 10 cards or if you potentially want a deck of 12 and have some of your cards be a little diluted. And that is basically what the Wildcards rework is. For balance changes, as I mentioned, there were 17 cards that do have some changes to them this season. And also they mentioned that they are now referring attack speed to be called attack cooldown. So we should start to see that already be in the game. The first card is Ardent Aegis. The duration decreased from 5 seconds to 4. And the reasoning is they said it became too difficult to use because of the lengthy timer. And I guess I could see that. I truthfully hadn't seen Ardent Aegis be used very often in game. So I'm curious to see if it will start to be used now, especially since there's been a change to Ardera and a change to some of the other cards as well. So we shall see that. Caber Tosser, they actually increased the Caber attack range from 4 to 6, and the Caber width also increased from 3 to 4. So what they were saying is that when the Caber was tossed, it was too narrow, and so it became annoying when you were trying to deal with hordes of minions, such as the Scrat Horde or the Skeleton Horde. And I do remember having that issue as well, even when I was playing the Caber Tosser in the adventure mode, is you would toss it, and it's like it would pretty much just get like this narrow middle amount of minions, and it would leave the minions on the side. So I think this change is nice. I'm curious to see if this will allow Caber Tosser to be played more, because I did always think it was kind of neat and a very easy clear for a bunch of the low-cost horde-type minions. Disruptor Puff. The first teleport cooldown has increased from 2 seconds to 5, but each teleport afterwards decreased from 6 to 5 seconds. And their reasoning for this is because they felt early in the game, if you already had a Disruptor Puff in hand and you played it immediately, it became too strong to be able to grab 2 bridges too quickly before the opponent had a chance to react. So what they're thinking is it makes it more fair that you play the Disruptor Puff, it teleports to the next bridge 5 seconds later, but every subsequent teleport from then on is decreased in seconds. So they think that that makes it more balanced. And I can see that. I mean, it was fast, and especially because they had also changed the bridge buddies, which used to be a really quick grab from 1 mana to 2. It makes sense that they would have to try to balance out a card like this that could easily grab 2 bridges quickly. Dragon Ball was one I talked about last week, and I'm probably going to have fun with this season. If you guys hang out my channel, you know that sometimes I like to make fun meme kind of decks like this, and I did have a Dragon Ball Z deck that I was playing with the Dragon Ball as well as Ritual of Servitude, and it does get tricky to play Dragon Ball because initially it had to be you played a minion of 6 or more mana to be able to activate it. Now this change is you play a minion that has 5 or more mana. So I can see it being more used in decks than even something I would run. So I'm excited to actually try this out, and I'm curious to see if anybody else is going to start trying out this card too, because I always thought it was kind of fun. All right, as I mentioned briefly earlier, we talked about Ardent Aegis. There has been a change to Ardera. Her damage increases from 25 to 27. This could be a good opportunity to play Ardent Aegis like we talked about as well, considering that Ardent Aegis did decrease in the mana cost. So now, again, Ardera's doing more damage, but you get something like Ardent Aegis that does at least give you a Priestess, and it gives you other minions that can be shielded when she dies. So I'm curious to see, again, if she will be played more this season with this little bit of a change. The Jade Flingers, their damage actually increased from 16 to 20, and their attack cooldown increased from 1.8 to 2. So I think that sounds like that makes sense. Jahoon, Keeper of Jadespark. So what's fun with this card is I remember when I was in the dev stream, when they were first showing Jadespark Jungle and they showed Jahoon, some of the comments that were in the channel is how Jahoon should be a mythic. And now Jahoon is a mythic. He wasn't before, but now it is. So how does that affect it? Well, for example, when Lightning Bolt is played, Jahoon will stay on the board, but lose a small amount of health. Kind of like what happens with Nevur right now, right? Is that if Lightning Bolt hits Nevur, it doesn't get rid of the dragon, it just decreases down the health. So it's going to be the same way, and I think it makes sense to have Jahoon as a mythic instead of just a regular minion. And they also decreased the Sunder mana cost from 1 to 0. Living Statue no longer has Call Slitherbound. So being a 5 mana card, a pretty tanky 5 mana card at that, they think that it proved too strong having Living Statue also be able to have the Call Slitherbound. So this can make sense. I can see that. Is you already have Living Statue, that's a pretty strong 5 mana tankish type card. So now removing that I think it balances it better. I like that. Morgul the Swarmer King, the mana cost increased from 4 to 5, but the Swarmer count increased from 2 to 3. So even though the mana cost is 1 more, you're getting 1 additional Swarmer. And the reasoning on this is Morgul did also have a recent change as far as attack speed had gone, and they felt like it was a little bit too much to be in the 4 mana buckets. So they felt that the best way to try to balance this was increase his mana to really make him the king, right? The Morgul Swarmer King, but to also give another Swarmer as well. I mean, Morgul has always been a pretty strong card. At least I always thought he was. I think it's still going to be a strong card. I still think he is still going to be very useful. And I can still see him being used. And having 1 more additional Swarmer in there, I think definitely makes this change fine. I mean, if they were just going to increase the mana cost and leave it at 2, then I don't know if that would necessarily be worth it. But they're increasing the mana cost by 1, but giving you an extra body with another Swarmer. So I think that works out. The next change is the Snake Druid, which I talked about last week. The speed increased from 2 to 3. How this works is now that the Snake Druid is moving faster, the opponent will be able to deal with it more efficiently, hopefully in a faster period of time. Kind of like the same change that happened to Harbinger. When Harbinger used to move so slow, it made it really difficult to deal with him because you usually had to try to wait till he got closer to the bridge and onto your arena. So now it's the same idea, is that the Snake Druid moving faster means the opponent can deal with it quicker as well. Soul Stealer. Now, I'm a fan of Soul Stealer, and I do think this is a good change. This makes sense. Is that the Soul Stealer attack speed increased from 5 to 6. And their reasoning is because they said that Soul Stealer was able to be so effective hiding behind big tanks and walls, such as a living statue or some of the buildings, that it really made it difficult to deal with them. So I think this is a good change. And like I said, I mean, I'm a fan of him and I probably will still use it, but I think that this was right for balance change. Stormy. Now, Stormy's attack delay increased from 1.5 to 2, with the attack cooldown also increasing from 3.5 to 4. And I think a lot of people can probably agree with this change considering how strong Zenchi Stormy decks could be, where you've seen a lot of complaints about how if a team plays a Zenchi deck properly, they can pretty much keep the whole board stunned. And there's almost nothing that the opponent can do. So what they're thinking is that having these increases should make it easier to deal with Stormy before Stormy can continue to stun and attack. So I'm curious to see how this works out and if people will still use Stormy or not. But I do like the fact that maybe the whole board won't be stunned for the whole duration of the game. The Sunburned Radius increased from 3 to 4. And a change with Ting Tang Tong is that their damage decreased from 99 to 90. And they also fixed this bug where projectiles were bouncing off of dead minions, so now that will not be happening. Troubadour's health increased by 100, so 1700 to 1800. We'll have to see if Troubadour gets more play now. We'll have to see that. Zealots of the Burning Fist. Their mana cost decreased from 7 to 6. I like this play. I like what they did here because when Zealots first came out, that was one of the biggest complaints is that even though they're a pretty cool card, their mana cost made them not very efficient to want to play in a deck. So it's possible that with the Zealots mana cost decreasing from 7 to 6 and the Ardent Aegis decreasing down to 4, this could be a nice way to now start playing Ardent Aegis again because along with the Zealots of the Burning Fist, they also lose health as they attack. So it could be nice to have the Priestess and other surrounding minions around the Zealots. So I'm curious to see if we'll see more of that this season. And the last card change is to the Zeppelin Bomber. The attack delay is going to increase from 2 to 3. I'm assuming this is probably because Zeppelin Bombers were spammed so much last season. It was very hard to go through the leaderboard and find decks that were spamming these in their decks. So I think that this is pretty good too. We'll see how this shakes out. And some other miscellaneous items is I had mentioned last week that expeditions were going away, and that is the case. Expeditions have been retired for now. There's going to be a new weekly quest where you can earn tokens by playing pre-made 2v2s to help try to compensate that. I actually liked expeditions. Some people didn't. I liked them. I'm not really sure how I feel about it being specifically a pre-made 2v2, considering there are people that rather play random or they rather just play solo, or we do have a lot of people that pretty much just play draft and mayhem. I'm not really sure how the pre-made 2v2, maybe it would have been nice if they just made it something specific like play 5 games or win 5 games, something like that. So it's not necessarily just pre-made 2v2, but we'll have to see what you guys think and make sure that you let me know as well. Are you happy with that? Did you like expeditions? Are you happy they're gone? Are you okay with the fact that they added in a pre-made 2v2 quest on top? To try to make up for expeditions being gone. Let me know what you think of that. And there's some other miscellaneous items here and some bugs that you guys can feel free to read about on the blog. But that is pretty much the changes to the 17 cards. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Do you like the changes? Do you not like the changes? Do you think that this change to Stormy is unfair? Do you think it is justified? What do you think of that? What about Morgul? I know a lot of people like Morgul the Swarmer King. Do you like this change? Jahoon, do you like that Jahoon is now a mythic? Do you guys think he's going to see more game time now? I'm really curious what you guys think, so make sure you leave me some comments down below. And the last thing to talk about today is Twitch Prime. Don't forget that the Minion Masters Might of the Slither Lords DLC is free on Twitch Prime until next week. I think it's May 5th. So make sure if you have Twitch Prime that you get in there, you grab your code. I'm still seeing codes being posted on Reddit. So if you guys aren't able to get it with Twitch Prime, maybe you could find one there or still ask about it. But this will be ending shortly, so make sure that if you did not use your Twitch Prime to get the Minion Masters Slither Lords DLC, that you do that. And like I said, I believe it expires May 5th, which is next Tuesday. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me this week on this episode of What's Happening with Leila. Again, we're at version 1.12, and it's the official launch, I guess you could say, of the Wildcards reworks that everybody's been looking forward to for quite a while. I definitely want to hear what you think. Do you like the Wildcards reworks? Especially if you're getting in today, you're just trying it out. Make sure you leave me some comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this content, please consider hitting that subscribe and liking the video. That helps the YouTube algorithm so more people see this. And in turn, it helps me out too, gives me the warm and fuzzies, and lets me know that you guys appreciate this content that I'm bringing to you every week. You can always catch me live as well on Twitch at twitch.tv/LeilaFoxNation. So I will see you guys again, either live on Twitch, or I will see you in next week's video where I want to know how you're liking version 1.12 so far. Thank you so much. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our video, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/LeilaFoxNation 4 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on by and be part of our community, and we'll see you there.